I was going out with this guy. I fell asleep when I was riding him. I was on top and I kind of rocked him to sleep. It was all very...
What age do you think you realised, I'm quite funny here?
I mean, there's some people who would still say I'm not, but I was certainly the class clown, I would say. And I loved making people laugh. There's a certain irreverence, I think, that you need for comedy, and that comes with who you're hanging out with. Did I tell you the story about me going in to get my pelvic floor tested with Vogue? So Vogue gets on 3 kids deep. Ping, ping. She could have done heart surgery with the precision of her heartbeat, up and down, up and down. I climb on, flatline.
What's going on down there?
When did you give birth? I said, I've never given birth.
Well, I haven't pissed myself. I'm just... Actually, no, I have loads. Actually, I have, because I've had babies. I piss every day.
Yeah, of course.
I have pissed myself.
Does that
Running.
feel good
Every
to
time
say?
I laugh, every time I sneeze, every time someone
it now.
shocks me.
I can see it.
Every
It's coming out of you.
We've unofficially started the podcast.
Oh, great.
So we're just
Okay.
going to keep on talking shit.
Yeah, great.
For however long we talk.
Well, we've done a good half an hour off.
Yeah, but that was exactly. We've done it.
No,
no
just
one
can't
heard
use
it.
any of it.
Oh, Joanne, I'm so happy we get to do this because we actually only met, a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
We talked exclusively about Furbies
We did.
for that chat. And
Yeah.
I'd like to veer off that topic today.
Oh, I didn't realise.
I'm afraid so. I'm afraid
wouldn't have
so. I'm afraid so. We've done Furbies,
We've
quite
done
frankly.
them to death, yeah.
We've absolutely done them, and we've got so much more to talk about. I mean, I think even since I saw you, you've been incredibly busy. You did a tour in the States.
I did, yeah.
How did that go?
Really well, actually. But I didn't realise. So I'm kind of trying to do the States in chunks.
Right, you have to.
It's so big. It's just so big. And I know that's not news to anyone, but it's when you go out there, it's just so vast. I've never felt more irrelevant in my life. Just the size of it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do this in chunks. More so just for fun, really. And to see if I can, see how far I can go over there. So I don't even know what coast I've done, some coast. So I did San Fran coast, so I won the last time, and this time I've done the other coast. See how
East
educated
and
I am?
west.
Don't know, couldn't tell you. But actually what happened was this time they were slightly bigger rooms. I mean, they're still small rooms. Like, no one obviously gives a shit about me in America. But funnily enough, Taskmaster does quite well over there, which I didn't realise. They're big into Taskmaster. So that gave me a big lift over there, which was fantastic.
great.
Yeah, so it wasn't like empty rooms. It was actually a bit of a buzz. And then I had 2 weeks in New York where I did a lot of the clubs and kind of got to know the bookers over there a bit and stuff. So I'm dipping the toe.
So great. And you've
dipping the
got
toe.
a UK tour next year.
Yes, Pinophile is the new show. It's,
Love.
Thank you.
I can't wait. I'm coming.
Of course you're coming.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
Do you like touring life? Does it suit you?
I love it.
Do you?
I love it. Like, so when the lockdown, when all that COVID stuff happened, I was like, oh shit, because I had just put everything into live because I love live. So all my eggs were in a live basket. I'd nothing nothing in the pipeline, as they say. I'd no sitcoms or anything. I just done it all live. It's my favourite thing to do.
Why is that? Because I think it's absolutely terrifying. The fact that it's not even like doing live TV. You've got an audience. You're reading their reactions.
Yeah.
They're literally working off your material, and you've got to sort of, if it's going well, fucking brilliant. But if it's not, you've got to stomach that and crack on with it.
I
That's
know.
so hard.
I know, yeah. It's funny though. It's like anything. Like, you just get used to it. It's like anything. You become desensitized to it. And I mean, not that desensitized. If a gig's not going well, you hope that you still have the intelligence to know it's not going well. If you're that desensitized, walking off thinking you've smashed it, that's a bad thing. But I don't know. I was always a bit of a show pony growing up, and then I got into performing kind of later in life. I was in my early 30s when I got into it. So I had a bit of life experience behind me. Whether that makes a difference or not, I'm not sure. I just decided this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to power through all that horrible self-loathing, awkwardness, dying on your arse, trains on your own. I'm just going to power through it because this is all I want to do. So I'm just going to suck it up, and whatever the bad stuff is, I'm just going to suck that up and get through it.
I think doing stand-up comedy makes you so unbelievably resilient because you've got to not take things so personally, which is so hard in the moment because it is just you. You're on your own on that stage. You're in control of it. You are. It's your stage, and you've got to deal with that just insane reaction. It's so tricky.
So the thing, I agree. I do think it makes you resilient, but not for the reasons you think, potentially. What I found was it made me very independent, like, because it's it's such an insular job. That's why I love doing podcasts and stuff, because you get to chat to other people, because otherwise you're on your own all day trying to write, and then in the evening you're gigging, so you're on stage, you're not really you are part of the room, but you're not really, and then you go home either full of joy or again full of self-loathing. So it is quite an insular job. And when I first moved to the UK, I found that part really hard, because I was obviously I was gigging all over Britain, so I was on trains all the time on my own, going into clubs where I didn't know anyone. I didn't know any comics over here, so that I found was way harder.
You're like the new kid at school every day.
Yeah, but there is no school.
There's no school. You're just walking into an empty building on your own with some old guy running the door.
Yeah, doing exams on your own every day, and you've no one to talk to. When you finish the exam, you've no one to talk to. Now I have made some comedy friends, thank God, because you really need them. They're like your system, you know.
And
they're like your support.
Someone has to get it. They have to understand what it's like.
They have to get it. So you have to be able to ring someone and go, oh my God, I just had the worst experience of my adult life, and they'll laugh it off with you. So the resilience came from being on my own so much. And now I would call myself, because I obviously read a lot of, when I say self-help, TikTok. I'm big into philosophy at the moment on TikTok.
On TikTok.
Just a quote at a time.
10-minute little chunks.
A quote at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, Aurelius. Here we go again. One quote. I would say I'm problematically independent now. I would call myself problematic.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I would say now I don't. I can only be around people for such. I used to be constantly surrounded by people. I still have a very big group of friends, but we were in that phase. Everyone has it, where you're just constantly attached to 28 other women, like a chain gang. Do you know what I mean? You do everything together. What are we doing at the weekend? Where are we going on holiday? Everything is a mass decision and a mass exercise. And that goes when you get older anyway. But because of the job, and I got so used to being on my own, that now I've kind of gone the other way. I would say I'm strangely introverted, an introverted, extroverted introvert, if such a thing exists. I'm sure it does.
No, it does. I am that.
Yes. Yeah, so your job, you're kind of expelling a lot of yourself.
Yeah.
And then once the job's over, I kind of go into a weird kind of social hibernation. I have to force myself to go out. I'm like, go out, Joanne, go out now, come on.
Same, but I'm having a little weird burst of fun. I don't know why.
Oh, good.
It's come out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I just want to go and get a bit pissed and have some fun, and I'm coming out of it a bit. I think it's all phases, but I totally understand that sort of hyper independence. I think I've had that for so long. Maybe because I started work young, I don't know, but sometimes I don't trust that people are going to do what I need or support me in the right way. So I'm like, nope, I'm doing everything on my own, which is not great. But I know I can rely on myself. So I sort of stick to that. And I know that that's not great, but it's just a coping mechanism, I guess.
You need to be able to delegate, don't you? Or else you will go slowly mad. You will go slowly mad. Like I'm getting a lot better at that, because like you at the start, you're completely in control of your own career. You're completely responsible for your own career. You're the one driving. You're trying to get work. You're trying to create work, all that stuff. So you're in charge of all that yourself. But as you get more experience in the industry and more work comes in, you have to try and learn to let that go a bit. Like even the press release for this new tour that I'm doing, they're like, and I would, because I was a publicist before I was a comic, I would have always kind of almost micromanaged that stuff. And now I'm like, I don't even want to read. I have a publicist now. I trust you implicitly. Do your thing. I'm
otherwise you go
hands
mad.
off. You'd go mad.
Yeah. So what's your coping mechanism if you do a show and you just think, oh, that just didn't land, or it just didn't go as you'd envisaged? What do you do after? How are you getting through that bit of self-doubt, critique? It's a shitty place to be. I've had it millions of times with, it could be a podcast episode. I'm like, oh, it just wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be, or it could be a telly thing, whatever. It's hard to pick yourself back up, get that confidence going again, to feel motivated again.
Yeah, I'd stand up. It's like, it's a job. You're kind of, you're offering a service.
Yeah.
And it's not an exact science.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's so subjective to the room. And, okay, a couple of things. One, it's never the audience's fault. That's one thing I learned early on.
It'd be good to blame them.
It would be so good to be like,
these guys are
just
shit.
600 wankers in one room at the same time. Just a wild coincidence. Do you know what I mean? You can't. It's on you. It's ultimately on you. Yeah. And so the thing that's really helpful is, and at the start, you obviously take it way worse than you do when you have enough gigs behind you that you're like, you can do the job. You're like, all right, grand. This wasn't great. What happened there? So I'm like, what actually happened there? Why didn't that work? And it's, if you can come away with a reason why it didn't work and something you can fix the next time, grand. And also, and a lot of comics will say this, you learn way more from your shit gigs than you do. If you're walking off storming it every night, you're not learning anything, do you know? Now, I'd love to not learn anything. I'm happy to never learn anything again for the rest of my life. But if you're going to be an adult about it and a professional about it, the weaker gigs, you're like, okay, what went wrong? You know, I went too heavy. I went too hard on that person. I misread that situation. I fudged that line. Like, there's always a reason for it. Thank God. And then once you can get the reason for it, then it doesn't eat you up as much. You're like, all right, okay. And then you kind of sit with it for a couple of hours the next day, have a coffee, think about it, and then you're like, right, I have to write this off now. I've got another show to do.
So really, it's quite practical, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
you have to be.
There's a system, and I think actually that's such good advice for sort of anything in life. And I wonder if that does spill into other areas outside of work where you might experience failure or something that didn't make you feel particularly good, and that you can be as practical afterwards.
Not really. The thing about comedy is you have to be prepared to fail very publicly. Like, you're failing in that moment. Like, there's no...
Makes me feel sick, Joanne.
Yeah, it's not. It is. Look, don't get me wrong. It's not a nice experience. Yeah, like I had a gig in one of the gigs, in one of the club gigs in New York when I was over there. It was a really... My agent, when he was booking it in, he actually warned me. He was like, I'm just letting you know. Because I wanted to... I never want to say no to anything because I love to climb and I'm like, I'll do anything, I'll do all those gigs, I'll do it all. I want to kind of prove myself all the time, especially because I've had a lovely tour behind me, so I want to prove that I'm not like soft now. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That I'm still, you know, I can do it.
Yeah.
So I had this gig booked in New York and my agent was like, it's notoriously a horrible room. I was like,
why is that? Why does that happen?
And I know I'm kind of contradicting myself because I said it's never their fault, but some rooms just aren't made for comedy. And it was a really late night show. So by the time you get on, I think it was 1 a.m. by the time I got on stage.
Oh my God.
And I was the last comic on. I thought it was going to be this like come to Jesus closing my first New York club gig. And there were so many comics on before me and there was just no energy.
They were laughed out.
They weren't even laughed out. It was just, like I say, it was a really small room. I think there was like 100 people in it.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the hallway waiting to go on. And I was like, it's fine. You know, you're like, I can fix it. I can fix it. I have enough stage time behind me. I can fix it. I went out and I was like, I can't fix this. This is painful. But then you get off, you're like, okay, I'm going to give myself some grace here. I've never gigged in that room before. I don't know that stage. I don't know any of the comics. I don't know the MC. I've just landed in you're trying to like
jet lagged.
Yeah, and it wasn't. In fairness, in my defence, I feel like I'm speaking to my agent now. In my defence, Tommy, you told me it was a hard room. Everyone had a terrible time. So it wasn't like I'd gone up and torpedoed what had been a fabulous show. So yeah, and I left that night and I was like, this does not feel good. But you know what? No harm. It kind of puts manners on you. Because you can if you have a couple of great gigs in a row, no harm getting a shit gig. Because it kind of goes, no.
Leveler.
Yeah, a leveler, yeah.
Yeah, I have the same with the podcast. If I have one where I think, I just, and hopefully no one would notice, but I just think, I wasn't quite my best.
Yeah.
I will go home and I will double down on everything that I'm looking into and how I'm going to phrase questions, or I'll listen to some other people interviewing again. And I've been doing this shit for years, but you still feel like you're being kept on your toes, which I guess is a good thing. You're not complacent, you're not bored.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I think experiences like that, they keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to be.
It is.
You want to be on your toes. You want to always be trying to get better, and you want to be trying to figure out how to make the joke better and how to work a room better and all that stuff. And if everything's going swimmingly, you don't bother thinking about stuff like that. You just start ringing it in then, you know.
I think it's a good metaphor for life.
Don't ring it in.
Yeah, and just sort of, keep on your toes. Don't get complacent about things. And what age do you think you realised, I'm quite funny here? People are sort of reacting to me in a positive way.
I mean, there's some people who would still say I'm not, but I'm hilarious. I always have been. No, I'm joking. No, I'm obviously taking the piss. I would say I was certainly the class clown, I would say. I know because I read a lot of celebrity memoirs and a lot of comedy memoirs, and I know that we seem to fall into two categories where some comics were quite introverted at school or quite serious at school, and some were quite clowny. I was definitely one of the clowny clowns.
Yeah.
One of the clowny comics. So I was kind of disruptive and I had to sit on my own a lot and during class, all that kind of stuff. And I loved making people laugh. Like I just loved it. It just gave me such a kick. I just loved it. And also I will say I have very funny friends. Like I think you can be, there's a certain irreverence I think that you need for comedy, and that comes with who you're hanging out with.
Do you think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
I do think that some people are just born funny, and it's something about the intonation, it's something about perhaps facial expressions, physical movement. There's some people you just think, you're fucking funny.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is.
No,
it's kind
it's
of
magic.
It's, I mean, I don't know if I go... When I was growing up, I was good at English, but there was a friend of mine who was amazing at maths, and I remember thinking that's magic. Like whatever you don't have, you admire.
Yeah.
So I just don't really think, like, I don't know. But like I say, my group of friends, our main goal was to make each other laugh, and there was an irreverence there. We didn't take anything that seriously. Like all our parents died and we were laughing about 2 hours later, not at the death of our parents. You know what I mean? It was just, there was something lovely about it. We didn't take anything too seriously, which is kind of the key.
And there is something about the Irish and storytelling that
we're very good at
you're
it.
just the best at storytelling. It's in your blood. It's in your lineage.
I don't know what it is. I think maybe because we were historically a bit of an underdog, that we learned how to get attention via storytelling. I don't know, but you're right, and I don't know what that is either. But there is something about, we are very good at storytelling.
I've not met an Irish person that isn't.
We're good, and I think the accent also helps us along. Like it's when when I listen to a Glaswegian comic, like say Kevin Bridges for example, whatever he says, his accent, I'm already on board.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I found that when I moved over here, when I moved to London from Dublin, that when they introduce you and they hear your accent, that they're kind of, they're willing to go with you.
And maybe paying more attention, because it's like the cadence is different.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a bit more sort of sparky and like, I'm listening to what this person's saying.
When I was in America before I went, because that was, the accent was hard. So I was like, before I went out, I was like, okay, Joanne, you've slow. I said, speak like you've had a stroke. When you go out, you've had a little stroke, just a little one. Slow it all down. And still, sometimes I would see them, I'd ask someone in the audience, and they'd be like, so that was difficult. You need to kind of tune into it a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I worked in America in my 20s for about, I did 2 TV shows for NBC out there. And that was my biggest challenge, was them understanding what the fuck I was saying. And there was a lot of notes coming back, like, I remember I did like a Guinness World Record show, and there was something, I mean, this sounds utterly inappropriate now, but it was like the world's biggest tumour. And they were like, And they were like,
what?
Yeah. And in this VT, I can't remember, I blocked it out because it was all quite traumatic. And they said, you're going to need to say tumour, okay? It's tumour. So I would have to remember when I got to that bit in my English accent. And now the world's biggest tumour, and sound like an absolute twat
like
saying
it.
Shore, but it was awful, and that was the biggest hurdle for me. Was, oh my god, you know my worst one? Actually, I can't even say it.
No,
I can't.
Please.
No, I don't think I can.
Is it worse than the world's biggest tumour?
Yeah, I don't think I can say it. I think it's I don't think I can say it. I might have to tell you off mic.
Go on, tell us now, and they can cut it.
Okay, we can cut it out because I don't want to get cancelled.
Is it the woman's biggest labia?
Right, no. But it's all of those little things that you are basically a complete outsider. An environment like that. You're not in with the sort of, and also state by state, the humour in New York's different to the humour in Arizona.
Oh my God.
The language, like all of it. You've got to get your head around that every time.
Totally. Like I was in Denver and some of the stuff, Denver, I was like, that's so weird. They're laughing at different things in Denver.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to someone after and he's like, you're in quite a posh part of Denver. Whereas when I was in Seattle, I was in a less posh part of Seattle, so they were going for everything. They were just having a fucking ball. Whereas I had none of that inside information, do you know?
You can't learn it until you're there. It's going to be different every time.
But that's what's so fun about it,
yeah.
you know?
It's great. I just love that you're up for that. And also...
Yeah, totally.
And sort of dealing with the rough and the smooth of all of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. You have to really love stand-up to keep putting yourself out there in that way.
Yeah, and I also, like, I'm not married, I've no kids, and I think one of the perks of that has to be that I can commit all this to this career, and make it my main priority and travel with it.
travel.
Because if I had a family, I wouldn't be able to head off to the States for 6 weeks and live out of a suitcase.
No.
Do you know, I wouldn't be able to do that.
No.
You know?
It's so good.
I'm kind of doing it now while I can before some gentleman knocks me up.
Oh, come on. It's going to happen any second.
Could happen
Quite frankly.
today.
Well, who knows? Not by me, sadly. I haven't got those
Don't
parts.
write it off. Don't write it off.
Who knows?
A turkey baster. Did you see
Do you know what I mean?
Did you see the story about the two prisoners? Why they were in the same prison, I'm not sure.
No.
A man and a woman.
Right.
And they had it through the cells, they had a healthy baby. He wanked himself off, passed the jizz through to her cell.
This cannot be true.
It's 100% true. I read it on Lad Bible, where I get it, so it has to be
your
true.
news. So get all your
Yeah,
headlines.
it's the CNN of the internet. And she used a turkey baster, put it up, and they had a healthy baby girl.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, who knows?
Who
Let's see how
knows?
the day pans out.
Yeah.
Do you think writing comedy for a tour or whatever you're working on at the time helps you see the funny side in troubling situations you've been through? You know, how far can you take it with something that has really troubled you or stressed you out?
Very far, all the way.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the amazing things about it, is that no matter what happens, you're like, I'll get
Material.
something. Yeah, I know. It's such a cliche, but it's true.
But does it help you deal and process with the terrible situations, you think?
Does it process it? Probably does. Like, yeah, which I think is quite self-indulgent, because it's not fair for people to pay money to come and watch you work through your personal issues. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not really, it's because people sometimes go, is it like therapy? I'm like, it's not like therapy, but there is something fun about having something like shit happen to you, whether it be with like lads or family or whatever, and then because to get a laugh out of it, you kind of have to make the joke about you in the end. It has to be about, the joke is on you, really. So then you have to kind of take accountability for your part in that situation, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's useful. Instead of writing all my exes off as narcissistic bastards, I'm like, well, hold on a second, maybe I played a part. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I played a part in that. I mean, it's not ideal to admit that, but so stuff like that is quite useful for you. But I wouldn't say I'm working through it on stage, because I think that would be incredibly selfish and very boring.
I think there's something interesting about just saying it out loud, because often we've been through something mortifying. Often we just never speak those words and we keep it inside, and it festers and becomes so much bigger. And actually just saying, do you know what? I pissed myself, or whatever the fuck it is. You've said it, and you're still there. There's something about that makes it less awful.
100%. And also,
I haven't pissed myself. Actually, no,
Well,
I have loads.
Of course
Actually,
you
I have,
have,
because I've had babies. I piss every day.
Yeah, of course.
I have pissed myself.
Of course.
Daily, yeah. Running.
Feel good
every
to
time
say.
I laugh, every time I sneeze, every time someone
it now.
shocks me.
I can see it.
Every
It's coming
time
out of you.
I'm a bit excited. It's just variables coming at me.
We did a whole 180 there, didn't we? See, it's good to share, isn't it?
It's good to share it,
Yeah.
babes. You're encouraging me right now.
Stop now, Fearne, stop.
I've got a whole list of other things I just want to go through with you and say out loud. It's so bad. But this is another reason why I also love what you do. I love your podcast with Vogue.
Thank you.
I love listening to you just chatting about whatever's happened that week or that day and airing it and having that space to do so without there being any filtering. I mean, is there anything that you wouldn't talk about in that space?
There is some, like, it's shocking, isn't it? That, like, that's the filtered version. There is. There's stuff on the floor that has been cut, which actually, do you know what? The further it goes, the longer I do the pod, I probably become a little bit more private about stuff, a little bit, because at the start we were just like anything and everything.
And now you know how many people listen, so that's another factor.
Also, Vogue, it's different for Vogue because she has a different type of profile that I would have. So if Vogue says something slightly controversial because she's taking the piss, chances are it'll end up as a headline, and then, you know, she's getting shit for it and all. So that's not great. But I'm like, listen, all publicity is good publicity until it happens to me, and then I'm like, cut all of that, go back, take it out. But there has been stuff that we said, like one time I told this story, I was going out with this guy and he fell asleep while I was during sex, like he fell asleep when I was riding him. I know. Listen.
How is that? Okay.
I know.
Very drunk?
Not drunk enough. Well, no, we were on holidays. No, we've been drinking.
Daytime drinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sun. I think it's
and
sunstroke.
sunstroke. You had sunstroke.
Yeah, and
okay.
I was kind of like, I was on top and I kind of rocked him to sleep. It was all very... I don't know. Anyway, I told it, and then I ended up doing it in stand-up. You see, this is the thing, because you can then use it. But when I told that story, because then I became single, and I was like, I don't know if I want that information out there.
That's not going on my Hinge profile.
Yeah, I want lads to think that I'm going to be the most exciting sexual experience of their human existence. Not that they're going to get a nap in. So I told that. And then I was like, I don't know if I should have said that. But then, like I say, it ended up going into the Ghosted live show. So you always get something out of it. But there is stuff. Or sometimes we'll end up in quite serious conversations. Or sometimes we'll have a disagreement, stuff like that. And Joe, our producer, is like, well, we can't. It's supposed to be, we want it to be pure, light-hearted escapism. Do you know what I mean? So when it veers down a serious route, suddenly we're talking about the American election. Joe's like, no one gives a shit.
Get that out.
Get rid of it. Yeah.
Go back to talking about pissing yourself.
Pissing yourself, riding your man to sleep. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But I just love that you guys have that friendship and that we're all in on hearing it. It's just a beautiful thing.
And we were close before the pod started, but we're way closer now.
I bet.
We're kind of like sisters now. Like,
I think it's that frequency, isn't it? Of like you're committed to, you're having that chat every week. Whereas with friendships, it's so all over the gaff. You know, like I'll see my best mate 4 times one week, and then I won't see her for 4 months. And it's that lovely, regular, this is where we just get to have a chat. And yes, people are listening, but it's still bonding.
100%. So when we and Vogue went to New York, we were doing, so I was doing stand-up out there, and then she came out and we did some of the Ghosted live shows out there, and it was so nice hanging out because we were saying, because we work together twice a week, we record twice a week, so we get so much engagement out of each other, and we're on the phone a lot about pod topics, and we tell each other everything, because that kind of confessional friendship that we have is off mic and on mic. But socially, we're trying to keep up with other friendships as well. So we don't socialise as much as we used to. Plus, Vogue, Vogue is quite into wellness and fitness and stuff, and I like a pub and Pinot, you know. So and when I go down to her house, there's kids everywhere.
So many children.
They're falling out of the walls. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So
and they're all gorgeous.
They're all gorgeous.
So gorgeous.
They're so gorgeous. They're like a French Benetton.
They really are. It's outrageous.
But they're loud, Fearne.
Of course they are. They're children.
They're loud.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of, I'll be like, hey.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah. And I'm like, Vogue, you've got your hands full. I'll leave it to it.
See you in the podcast studio where there's no children.
Back to the pub.
Yeah.
So when we were in New York together and we had 4 or 5 days together.
That's fun.
It was so nice.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
And New York's so fun for that sort of thing.
It was brilliant. It was so much fun. And she had no kids with her, and we had all that time to spend together. And then we're like, oh my God, we need to do like a team building trip.
Yes.
Tell Spencer 3 times a year.
Yes, Spencer, come on, you're off running in the desert for half the year. Let her go and have a little girly holiday.
Take the kids to the desert.
We'll make that happen. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Well, I love it, and I hope you just keep doing it forever, because it's just a great bit of escapism and lovely to be in on the
there's nothing to it. It's just fluff.
It's great.
But it's fun fluff.
We need it. Yeah, but it's not just fun fluff. It's like, it's super smart conversation, and I love it. It's great. It is. I'm telling you it is. Okay. The other thing that we chatted about off mic when we were at Radio 2 was your childhood, which I found so fascinating to talk to you about. You were adopted at what age?
3 months.
3 months old. And I so love talking to you about that off mic and hearing about, well, all of it, you know, meeting your biological parents and your relationship with your mum and meeting your brothers. It was just, I saw a whole other side to you that I didn't know so well.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's funny because it's so hard to know what I'd be like if I wasn't adopted. I've no idea, because it is what it is now. I can't like undo it and look. It's not like a sliding doors thing. But I meet a lot of adopted comics, and I've always wondered, is there some connection? I don't know if there is. There's this kind of, if you were to go full Freudian on it, it's this kind of proving yourself. But I never felt, I've met other adopted people who felt like they were abandoned. My parents did such a good job of making sure I never cared about being adopted that I think they kind of went a bit overboard, and I thought I was special, which was worse actually. It gave me this inflated sense of self as a child, because I was like, everyone wanted me, and do you know what I mean? They had to kind of dole me out and to see who would get me. So I was adopted at 3 months old. My birth parents were very young, and a relationship wasn't on the cards, and it was, you know, Ireland in the 80s. So I was adopted 3 months old into the family I'm in now. My brother's adopted, and I was adopted into a fairly, like, my mum was a nurse, my dad was a draftsman, kind of like a regular, normal family. So because I did have this slight show pony side to me, I had these fantasies that I'd come from this kind of pantomime dynasty, or, you know, what's your one's name? The Russian child that they found and they didn't remember, Anastasia. Like that of the theatre world, the arts. But of course, when I found my birth parents, they were exactly like my adopted parents. There was literally no difference.
You're just a one-off.
Yeah, my birth mother even looks like my adopted mother. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, so there was no big showbiz dynasty in the end. Just like my own.
And what was it like meeting? You know, and if this is all too personal, you can tell me to not ask these questions. But what was it? I've got a friend who was adopted, and he's talked to me quite extensively about meeting his birth mother.
Yeah.
And the feelings around that. And obviously it's going to differ each time. How did you feel?
So the weirdest thing about being adopted is the thing that really gave me quite a hang up, and I would even go so far as, because I'm in my 40s now, when you look back, a little bit of an identity crisis, if that's not too grandiose a term to use.
I don't think so
for
at
this
all.
time in my life where I was like, who the fuck am I? Because there was no blueprint. You can't look behind you and go, oh well, actually I'm the image of Uncle Pat and he's really good at that thing and I'm really good at that thing. You don't have that. So you're definitely trying to figure out. And my parents put me into every single extracurricular activity going because they were like, Jesus, this woman could be a pianist and we don't, like, you know, she could be an Olympian. I was none of those things. But the one thing I did take to was drama and stuff. But I got cast and stuff when I was younger only because I was so loud. They were like, she can project her voice like knowing her age. They were like, we don't even need a mic on her. She is so loud. I was just this really loud baby. But not looking like anyone I found hard. And I was so envious of family like that looked like each other. I was, jealous is too strong. I envied that a lot. And that did cause some confusion, I think, growing up. So when I found my birth parents, my birth father, the second I saw him on Facebook, because that's how modern family tracking works.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it was me as a 60-year-old man.
That must be bizarre.
It was bizarre. I'm kind of used to it now, but at the start, it was such a buzz. It was such a buzz.
And what about meeting him?
Yeah, he's fab. He's quite cool. He's got an earring.
Oh, yeah. Cool
he's
dad.
Quite groovy. He's a groovy man. He lives in Melbourne, Australia, and he's got 4 sons who are all the absolute spit of me as well. I know, it's crazy.
I saw that picture. It's that you're
uncanny. Yeah. They're the same. And
yeah.
I just find it fascinating. And like, I've met other people in my life that I look like, because there's only so many features in the world and faces are ultimately just a mash-up. You know, you're going to come across people that look similar to you, but seeing them and breaking down their face with my face, I loved it.
It's wild.
It was like an amazing Sudoku.
Yeah. And how do you think, sort of growing up, maybe teenage years, that sense of maybe lacking what your identity was or who you were, and it's obviously, identity is such a hot topic today. Like, everyone feels like it's very important to say where I'm from, what I'm about, you know, whatever it might be, what makes you up as a human. How did that impact you? You know, teenage years are shit as they are. They're difficult to navigate, working out who you are in the world, but you had that sort of added element going on.
Yeah, it was confusing. At the time, I just thought again, because I don't know what other people's experiences are inside themselves, so I don't know. But I definitely, I've met other adopted people who don't really care. It doesn't bother them. That piece of it doesn't bother them that much. I think because I was quite different to my family. Not different. I better be careful how I say that. Hold on. I felt different. I guess because I had that little show pony side to me, and that wasn't in the family I was adopted into, which are obviously my family, that I thought that I would find it in the OGs, the birth family. And I always had that in the back of my head. So when that didn't happen, you are kind of left in a bit of a limbo land then. You have to be like, oh, I'm just my own person. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I really wanted a blueprint because I was very confused about what I would do, as loads of people are. Had I met my birth family and one of them was an actor or one of them was a novelist, I would have been like, oh, okay, I can pursue that side of myself because it'll come good. But I didn't have that. So I was left in a bit of a limbo land. I was like, oh, God, that didn't really...
You just got to rely on yourself.
That's it, which is worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to. I wanted to be told what to do. I wanted to be shown what the future me was going to be like, what it was going to look like, what it was going to work as. And I did get the physical thing from my birth father. But the career character thing I didn't get. Then I had to figure it out for myself. And look, the worst case, now I'm in stand-up comedy. I mean, it couldn't have gone worse for my mother, Patricia. It couldn't have gone worse.
Poor Patricia.
I know.
I mean, down the line, does it feel quite liberating to not have that blueprint, that you are just quite literally navigating your way through things that feel right to you rather than going, I've got the pressure of, I must do this because it's in my lineage, or I've been told I've got to do this?
I think I would have massively benefited from having some sort of mentor in the family. I think I would have. I would have loved that. I take direction well. I love a kind of a wise, slightly older person to advise, and I didn't have that. I mean, who does in comedy? But some people do. Some people come from parents who are comedy or parents who are in show business. I would have really liked that. But it wasn't there. And that's fine. You know, I'm doing my own thing. But I would have, I think, benefited massively from that.
It's also probably why, I mean, like me, you're just completely independent and you just like, I'm going to go on. Yeah, exactly.
But I'll tell you one amazing thing that happened. One of my best friends, Nora, who we were in the same secondary school, and she was similar to me. She loved writing, she loved English, and we had that in common. So she was a couple of years ahead of me and we became friends, which doesn't usually happen in school. Usually the older girls are very separate. Yeah, they look down on us like we're peasants, like we're pieces of shit.
Yes.
But we kind of formed our own friendship, and then we went into university. We both studied English in university, but because we were so chaotic, we both ended up as mature students finishing our degree in the same year. So we became like best friends. And her family are very arty. Her mum is an actor. Her father ran a theatre in Ireland, in Dublin. And she actually came with me to meet my birth mother. She drove me down to meet her. And when we left the next day, my birth mother had added me on Facebook, and she said, how do you know XXX, who's Nora's mother? And I said, oh, she's Nora's mother. And she said, oh my God, we're related. Her granny and my granddad are cousins. Or
what?
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So then that was amazing because
your best mate is your family. Yeah. You're like second cousins or something.
Yeah.
What?
So I rang Nora and I was like, are you sitting down? Because it was just amazing.
That is wild.
It is wild, yeah. I always forget that part of the story. So then I got that kind of theatre that I wanted. I so badly wanted that, and I did actually get it in the end from the wings, from the wings.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is strange for anyone who, I mean, I'm certainly the first generation doing anything of the sort in terms of media, TV. My parents were, from a working class family. My mum was doing about 8 jobs. My dad's been a sign writer for his whole life. And I think you do think, oh God, who tells me how this works?
Yeah, I know.
When you first start doing telly, like who's going to tell me, am I doing this right? Do these people, do they get to tell me what to do? Or can I say no? Or it's really confusing.
It is. And there's no training for it. Well, I suppose there might be, but it's you're very much on your own trying to figure it out. And that's why experience is, it's so amazing. And that's why a mentor in any business is so useful to
find a mentor. Have you found one since?
So I have. There's a comic, an Irish comedy, he's Irish-American comic called Des Bishop, who's very good to me for comedy. Like when I was doing my last tour, Prosecco, and Prosecco turned into something we didn't anticipate it was going to be. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do about this? And there was like 10 shows in a row, and I was like, I don't know if I can do them, and all these kind of concerns. And he was very good, and he spoke to me about money, and he spoke to me about who I can tell no to, or who I can say no to, who I have to say yes to, priorities, agents, bookers. He was really useful for all that stuff, and I really needed him. I think
a mentor is so underrated. I've got a mentor, but she's a friend, but we're quite boundaried about, right, I'm being a mentor now, and here's my advice. She's, she calls herself an elder. Yes. And she'll give me loads of great advice, but then also we can hang out and be mates, and that's not the dynamic. But I think it's so important to have someone older, wiser, more experienced to just say a few words of wisdom. And equally, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I would love to be that for someone else one day. I don't know if I'm quite there yet. But I think, would you do that in the comedy world?
Yes.
And,
I'm always trying to mentor Grace Campbell. She's like, Joanne, I don't need it. I'm bigger than you. She's like, okay.
I've surpassed that.
Yeah, I'm like swigging out of a wine. I'm like, and another thing, Grace. She's like, I just did an Apollo. I really don't need your help. But 100%. And I love seeing acts come up and you're like, you're going to you
can see the magic.
Yes.
They're going to do it.
Yeah. But it took me a while to get to the point to be able to do that. I remember very early on in my career, people were coming to me for advice and help, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I am still like on the first rung of this ladder. I have no idea. I have no wisdom to impart upon you. I am still climbing and hustling, and I'm still climbing and hustling, and the climb and the hustle never stops. Which is half the crack of it.
Yeah, I don't think it does ever. I don't think so either. And also, I think if you've got ambitious goals, which I think we both got ambitious goals, you always sort of feel like you're on the first rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
You never feel like, I am nailing it, guys.
Exactly.
Ever. I wouldn't want to get to that point. There's always another thing that I want to try and do. And
that's even earlier, when you kind of sit back and relax and kick your feet up, that's when it'll all fall apart.
Yep. Never
stop.
Never stop.
Sleep.
Keep walking till you die.
Never sleep.
Never sleep.
Yeah.
Keep hustling.
Yeah. But again, like I say, I really enjoy it because for the first year ever, I've never done this. Well, actually, no, maybe I did once. I like to make huge statements and then backtrack immediately.
I do this.
Like you and the pissing yourself.
All the time. I've never pissed myself. Actually, I pissed myself 5 times a day.
You're like,
sorry guys, I'm wearing panty liners
all
right
the
now.
Time.
Yeah.
They're like your nose is just growing with every lie we tell.
I literally have to wear period pants to go for a jog because I piss myself that bad.
Yeah, but you've had kids.
Yeah, there's no pelvic floor.
What's my excuse?
There's not.
I've had no kids.
No kids.
Did I tell you the story about me going in to get my pelvic floor tested with Vogue?
No, but I want to have this happen to me. What do you do?
So there's these I was about to say hummus. What's it called when you have a baby?
Hummus?
I'm thinking of posthumous. They always call it hummus. Post-birth. Postpartum.
Post-hummus.
Post-hummus. Posthumous. I used to think it was post-hummus.
Post-hummus, okay.
Post-hummus. Postpartum physios that you can go to for
I know,
women.
I didn't do this. This is very commonplace in France. Apparently, I think all French people
get
offered this service here. They're like, bye.
Yeah.
Piss yourself forever.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yes. Well, there's a post...
Hummus.
Posthumous clinic. I can't. It's a
no one
died.
died.
I can't remember the name of it now. And Vogue was like, "Look, I'm going in." Vogue's obviously had
three kids,
and she was like, "Come in with me, be a good crack." And I was like, "I have no interest going in, getting my pelvic floor tested or whatever." And she's like, "Come in."
Go on.
I was like, "All right, go on. I'll do nothing else. Go in." And Vogue was in ahead of me, and they have this. It's basically the buzz chair, we call it, where you sit on it and it kind of buzzes your vaginal muscles back.
I'm really up for this.
How have you not done this?
I don't know because I'm
I
really
would assume someone would have. They would have
daily.
offered this to you.
This is my moment now, saying it. Big
Could,
broadcast out
Fearne,
there.
it could be too late.
It's definitely too late.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a canyon down there, guys. There's literally nothing that can be done.
They're like, it's a sinkhole, guys. There's nothing we can do.
There's nothing to pull them back together. Is it 2 things coming back together? Is it just a weak floppy
2
thing?
chairs?
What is it?
So, and then it kind of buzzes your muscles back.
Right.
Now, I obviously waxed and all. I thought she was going to go in, but she wasn't. So when I got in there, Vogue's dressed in all white like J-Lo, lounging on this huge electric chair, just getting like demurely buzzed. And I was like ready to go. Do you know what I mean? But so anyway, they put me on this chair where it reads how strong your pelvic floor is.
Right.
And Vogue gets on. You kind of pulse or clench.
Oh, right. Yeah, I do try and do that. So I'm just sort of, even in a podcast sometimes I'll just be doing it.
Yeah, your Kegels.
Yeah, no one knows.
But this machine like reads it like a heartbeat to see how strong it is. So Vogue.
Mine has got no pulse.
Well,
it's deceased.
That's what happened to me.
Really? You've got...
So Vogue gets on 3 kids deep. Ping, ping. She could have done heart surgery with the precision of her heartbeat, up and down, like a scalpel, right?
Yeah.
I climb on. Flatline.
What's going on down
One was
there?
like, when did you give birth? I said, I've never given birth. I've never given birth. I said, plug the machine in. Plug it in. Plug it in. So that's why. So when you talk about that, now I'm grand. Like she put me on the chair. So basically, Vogue bounces out. No post-hummus treatment needed.
No, she's
and
fine.
I continue to go to the clinic. They're like, we're going to need to see you again.
I'll be your buddy because I am pissing for England.
We'll just be sitting on the bike, clenching. Yeah. You should go to
I'm
them.
going. I mean, this is my catalyst to go. It's happening.
Because we spoke about, because then I was going in, her name's Maria, she's lovely, she's a physiotherapist, but she's a postpartum physiotherapist, and she was talking about the damage that childbirth can do to a woman's body, and then they're just like stitched up, off you go.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I was so lucky, and I mean, this is TMI for sure, but I had no stitches. It was all absolutely
you.
great. Did a bit of the lubing.
Yeah.
No stitches, but the pelvic floor, it's not
No
there.
stitches,
It's
though.
not there. I know.
One of my friends, I'm
So
not going
lucky.
to say her name just in case. She probably doesn't want me telling everyone this.
Probably not.
But when she gets drunk, she's like, not a single stitch. That's
Yeah.
like her party trick story that
I've
she
just
tells
said it
us.
sober on a podcast.
Keep that in. That's a humble brag. That's a flex.
I'm happy to brag about it.
I had a friend who she got stitched up. Do you have any male listeners?
Probably one.
Yeah, fine. She got stitched up postpartum.
Yeah.
And went home. And when she eventually agreed to ride her husband again, he couldn't get it in her. And she was like, what the fuck? And it turned out the doctor had given her what they call a gentleman's stitch that she had not asked for. Because
What?
She knew someone who knew the doctor. So the doctor was a woman, thought she was doing her a favour, stitched it up. Like, do you know they call this the gentleman's stitch to make it even tighter than when he came in? For the husband.
Wow.
Yeah, so she had to go in and take it out.
Well, quite. Get that stitch out, babes.
Yeah, I was like, just keep him out. Keep a tight vagina. Just don't ride him again. Find a smaller husband.
That's that wisdom, that mental
There you go.
wisdom that
There
she
you go.
needs.
I know, yeah. That's for free, babe.
I didn't think we were going to get onto the pelvic floor, but I'm so glad we have.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yeah. But seriously, get on that.
No,
It's
no,
really
I'm doing
good.
it. I mean, that's going to be our next date.
Yes,
So get
yeah.
ready.
Just
Good luck.
holding hands
Just
across
holding
the clinic
hands,
floor.
Just vibrating away.
On a commode. As we gently urinate. Yeah.
Christ. Well, look, until then,
Yeah.
have a bloody good tour.
Is that it?
We've talked for 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
Goes quite quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you're having fun.
I loved that.
I loved that.
Thanks,
Unless there's
Fearne.
anything else you want to say. Oh, I know. I've got one question for you.
All right, go on.
Where's your happy place, Joanne?
Is it wanky to say on stage?
Oh, I think that's delightful.
Yeah, I think it's on stage.
I think that's so beautiful because I think for those like me that can get utter stage fright, to imagine that experience of this is where I feel the most me, that's amazing.
It's stage. In the wings, maybe, just when you're about to go on, that's when I get the most excited. And the bath.
The bath.
Yeah, but the stage and the bath.
That's a good
You put a
combo.
bath on stage.
Yeah, do that next tour.
Yeah.
Love.
Pass out from the ecstasy of it all. Yeah, stage, I would say.
Gorgeous. Well, look, it's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
I think
Oh.
you're fucking great.
Can I say where the tickets?
Yeah. We can put it in the show notes, but say it anyway.
Fine. So
No, say it.
all tickets available for the new show, stand-up show Pedophile, are available on my website, joannemcnally.com.
Done.
UK and Ireland.
Love.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Woo!
Yeah!
Loved it!
To pelvic
That
floors.
fucking flew in.